Mouse Rebel News fans, there is a very interesting development that is taking place. The U.S. now claims that it is absolutely certain that the government of Bashar al-Assad in Syria has used chemical weapons on the population, more specifically used on the FSA terrorists. Now, previously the U.S. said that it had suspected to, but apparently now they have enough evidence to say conclusively that in the past year, the government of Bashar al-Assad has used chemical weapons. Now, they suggested that most likely what he used was a sarin nerve gas, which killed, as they say, about 150 people, or 0.16% of all the 93,000 people that have died in the Syrian conflict thus far. Now, a portion of the memo announcing this was released to the New York Times. Intelligence community assesses that the Assad regime has used chemical weapons on a small scale against the opposition multiple times in the last year. Now, in reaction to this, the United States, an official within the government, spoke to the Wall Street Journal saying that they were now considering where they were going to establish a no-fly zone that they would enforce from Jordan. As you'll recall, previously I did a video saying that there were U.S. troops inside of Jordan for the specific purpose of going after Syria. It now appears that the leak that showed that the troops were there was in fact actually right. They're also saying that they are now considering arming the FSA rebels against the Syrian government. Now, Congress was notified last Thursday of these, with the classified documents of the so-called evidence of the chemical weapons used supposedly by the Syrian government. Now, they said these findings are verified by evidence that has been sent by France. Now, this has also been confirmed by France and the UK, who have also accused the Syrian government of using chemical weapons in the past. Now, previously, the U.S. has said that this would be the red line, at which point that they would become involved in the situation in Syria. That this would be what it would take, just push it a little bit more. It would cause them to start becoming actively engaged, even though they are actively engaged right now and have been sending communication devices and paying for weapons from Israel and other countries to go to the FSA terrorists. So while it's not that much of a change, they're now officially saying that they're pretty much going to be involved, although they said they have not set a time frame yet by which they will get involved. Now, what's interesting here is that no proof has been given to the public that this use of chemical weapons is real. In fact, a previous UN report said that there was no evidence that the government of Bashar al-Assad had actually used chemical weapons, but said there was significant evidence that the Syrian terrorists, or the FSA, had actually used chemical weapons. Of course, this report has just mysteriously not gone reported by the Western media, including RT, which is actually usually better than that. But I consider it no coincidence that this supposed proof, that's of course not being given to the public, that the FSA that the Syrian government is using chemical weapons, comes just after there have been several high-profile military defeats of the FSA inside of Syria. They've recently lost a couple major battles, and they've lost key territory that they once held. I don't consider it to be a coincidence that this so-called proof of chemical weapon use, which would be the tipping point to get the U.S. involved, just happened to come out at this time. This is very clearly an imperialist plot done to justify the possible future military intervention into Syria, including now the no-fly zone, which they said they are going to enforce. Now, you see, what this definitely shows is that the government of Bashar al-Assad is gaining the confidence of the people. The people's resistance to this invasion by NATO is driving people into the hands of the Syrian government. Of course, Bashar al-Assad is no communist and is known to kill communists in the past. However, this incident, this imperialist invasion, is driving people away from the so-called rebels, the so-called freedom fighters, right into the hands of Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian government. But should we really be surprised that this is happening? After all, they're not connected to the people. It's highly claimed that the FSA is the people rising up against Bashar al-Assad. Yet we already know for a fact that there's very few actual Syrians involved. There's people, mercenaries coming from many other countries to carry out this combat on the behalf of NATO. So we can see that definitely this is the act of NATO. NATO itself in its contradictory nature, in that it contradicts the will of the people, that it is not connected to the people and does not have the people's interests involved, is driving people away from them and into the hands of Bashar al-Assad. This is one of those contradictions of imperialism. The people have their own specific set of interests, which does not lie on the side of NATO and on the terrorists that they employ in this situation. And they are driving the people out of their own interests into the hands of Bashar al-Assad, who does not necessarily represent their own interests. However, this is all the fault of the US and NATO, who is invading the country. See, now this is what happens when a fighting force is not connected to the people, meaning this is not coming from the people. This is not the will of the people being carried out. Now, let this be a lesson about what it means to serve the people, to serve them, to give them what they want, what it is that they need. That is why this invasion by NATO is failing and will eventually require direct military intervention on behalf of the United States government. Because the FSA is not a part of the people. It is not connected to who it is, what they want. It does not represent their own hopes and desires. Neither really does Bashar al-Assad. But because of the contradictions of imperialism, the people are being forced to support the government of Bashar al-Assad.